Oh, it's going. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl. I'm here with my good friends Jason and Angel and Lori and Catherine. And today we're going to continue our discussion of the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And we're on, if you have the hard copy of the book, we're on page 24. And we're just going to start by reading there until we feel like talking about one of these sections. But before we get going with that, I'm going to have my friends jump out, introduce themselves, and then Catherine, you can take it away with the reading.
Mm-hmm. Hey, this is Jason Roberts, coming all the way from Tampa, Florida. Great.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Angel Studebaker down here in South Carolina. Oh, can you not hear me? Do I need to speak up? This is better? Angel down in South Carolina.
Hi, this is Catherine Clement. And in case you're just joining us, every section of this book has kind of started out with like 36 hours before Nora decided to die, or 6 hours before Nora decided to die. So at the end of the last reading, she had written a suicide note and had pretty much said goodbye. So this chapter, the title of it is Midnight, basically. 0000000. So at first, the mist was so pervasive that she could see nothing else, until slowly she saw pillars appear on either side of her. She was standing on a path, some kind of colonnade. The columns were brain gray with specks of brilliant blue. The misty vapors cleared like spirits wanting to be unwatched, and a shape emerged, a solid rectangular shape, the shape of a building, about the size of a church or a small supermarket. It had a stone facade, the same coloration as the pillars, with a large wooden central door and a roof which had aspirations of grandeur, with intricate details and a grand-looking clock on the front gable with black painted Roman numerals and its hands pointing to midnight. Tall, dark arched windows framed with stone bricks punctuated the front wall, equidistant from each other. When she first looked, it seemed there were only 4 windows, but a moment later there were definitely 5 of them. She thought she must have miscounted. As there was nothing else around, and since she had nowhere else to be, Nora stepped cautiously towards it. She looked at the digital display of her watch. 000000. Midnight, as the clock had told her. She waited for the next second to arrive, but it didn't. Even as she walked closer to the building, even as she opened the wooden door, even as she stepped inside, the display didn't change. Either something was wrong with her watch, or something was wrong with time. In the circumstances, it could have been either. What's happening? She wondered. What the hell is going on? Maybe this place would hold some answers, she thought as she walked inside. The place was well lit, and the floor was light stone, somewhere between light yellow and camel brown, like the color of an old page. But the windows she had seen on the outside weren't there on the inside. In fact, even though she had only taken a few steps forward, she could no longer see the walls at all. Instead, there were bookshelves, aisles and aisles of shelves reaching up to the ceiling and branching off from the broad open corridor Nora was walking down. She turned down one of the aisles and stopped to gaze in bafflement at the seemingly endless amount of books. The books were everywhere on shelves so thin they might as well have been invisible. The books were all green, greens of multifarious shades. Some of these volumes were a murky swamp green, some a bright and light chartreuse, some a bold emerald, and others the verdant shade of summer lawns. And on the subject of summer lawns, despite the fact that the books looked old, The air in the library felt fresh. It had a lush, grassy, outdoors kind of smell, not the dusty scent of old tomes. The shelves really did seem to go on forever, straight and long toward a far off horizon, like lines indicating one point perspective in a school art project, broken only by the occasional corridor. She picked a corridor at random and set off. At the next turn, she took a left and became a little lost. She searched for a way out, but there was no sign of an exit. She attempted to retrace her steps toward the entrance, but it was impossible. Eventually, she had to conclude she wasn't going to find the exit. This is abnormal, she said to herself, to find comfort in the sound of her own voice. Definitely abnormal. Nora stopped and stepped closer to some of the books. There were no titles or author names adorning the spines. Aside from the difference of shade, the only other variation was size. The books were of similar height, but varied in width. Some had spines 2 inches wide, while others significantly less. 1 or 2 weren't much more than pamphlets. She reached to pull out one of the books, choosing a medium-sized one in a slightly drab olive color. It looked a bit dusty and worn. Before she had pulled it clean from the shelf, she heard a voice behind her, and she jumped back. "Be careful," the voice said, and Nora turned around to see who was there. The librarian. "Please, you have to be careful." The woman had arrived seemingly from nowhere, smartly dressed with short gray hair and a turtle green polo neck jumper. About 60 if Nora had to pin it down. "Who are you?" But before she had finished the question, she realized she already knew the answer. "I'm the librarian," the woman said coyly. "That is who." Her face was one of kind but stern wisdom. She had the same neat, cropped gray hair she'd always had, with a face that looked precisely as it always did in Nora's mind. For there, right in front of her, was her old school librarian, Mrs. Elm. Mrs. Elm smiled thinly. Perhaps. Nora remembered those rainy afternoons playing chess. She remembered the day her father died, when Mrs. Elm gently broke the news to her in the library. Her father had died suddenly of a heart attack while on the rugby field of the boys' boarding school where he taught. She was numb for about half an hour and had stared blankly at the unfinished game of chess. The reality was simply too big to absorb at first, but then it had hit her hard and sideways, taking her off the track she'd known. She had hugged Mrs. Elm so close, crying into her polo neck until her face was raw from the fusion of tears and acrylic. Mrs. Elm had held her, stroking and smoothing the back of her head like a baby, not offering platitudes or false comforts or anything other than concern. She remembered Mrs. Elm's voice telling her at the time, "Things will get better, Nora. It's going to be all right." It was over an hour before Nora's mother came to pick her up, her brother stoned and numb in the back seat, and Nora had sat in the front next to her mute, trembling mother saying that she loved her, but hearing nothing back. "What is this place? Where am I?" Mrs. Elm smiled, a very formal kind of smile. "A library, of course." "It's not the school library, and there's no exit. Am I dead? Is this the afterlife?" "Not exactly," said Mrs. Elm. "I don't understand." "Then let me explain." Shall I continue? Okay. The Midnight Library. As she spoke, Mrs. Elm's eyes came alive, twinkling like puddles in moonlight. "Between life and death, there is a library," she said. "And within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be different if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? So I am dead. So I am dead, Nora asked. Mrs. Elm shook her head. No, listen carefully. Between life and death. She gestured vaguely along the aisle towards the distance. Death is outside. Well, I should go there because I want to die. Nora began walking. But Mrs. Elm shook her head. That isn't how death works. Why not? You don't go to death. Death comes to you. Even death was something Nora couldn't do properly, it seemed. It was a familiar feeling, this feeling of being incomplete in just about every sense, an unfinished jigsaw of a human, incomplete living and incomplete dying. So why am I not dead? Why has death not come to me? I gave it an open invitation. I'd wanted to die, but here I am, still existing. I'm still aware of things. Well, if it's any comfort, you are very possibly about to die. People who pass by the library usually don't stay long one way or the other. Give me just 1 second. When she thought about it, and increasingly she had been thinking about it, Nora was only able to think of herself in terms of the things she wasn't, the things she hadn't been able to become. And there really were quite a lot of things she hadn't become. The regrets, which were on permanent repeat in her mind. I haven't become an Olympic swimmer. I haven't become a glaciologist. I haven't become Dan's wife. I haven't become a mother. I haven't become the lead singer of the Labyrinths. I haven't managed to become a truly good or truly happy person. I haven't managed to look after Voltaire. And now, last of all, she hadn't even managed to become dead. It was pathetic, really, the amount of possibility she had squandered. While the Midnight Library stands, Nora, you will be preserved from death. Now you have to decide how you want to live.
I think we can stop there and talk about what we've read so far.
All right.
See. So in the previous section before this one, she had decided that she was done. She wrote her suicide letter and she took some pills. Is that what it was? She took some pills.
Yeah, I think so. She took pills.
Yeah, she had decided pretty much that, at this point, kind of how it summed up at the end of this section is that she's just decided she'd never done anything right and it wasn't worth living. And and now she's being faced with this space that she's in where she thought she was killing herself, and now she's discovering that she hasn't exactly killed herself, but she's still telling herself how she's doing everything wrong. Talking about how she thinks of herself in terms of the things that she wasn't. And then also this feeling of being incomplete in just about every sense, like an unfinished jigsaw of a human, incomplete living and incomplete dying. And then this concept also of wondering why she's not dead and that she's still existing even though she thought she was ending her life. And so then she's faced with that as well. And then this whole concept of the library. What was it she was saying? Between life and death, there's a library, and within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be different if you'd made other choices. So these are some interesting things that it kind of presents here for us. Which one do you guys want to talk about first?
I'd like to say I don't remember what you guys are saying about how she had taken pills and had already done that, because just the last time, I don't know, did I miss our last reading, because it was 7 hours before, I thought we were at
Yeah, you missed a reading
I did.
somehow. Somehow you must have, because she had written the note and it said goodbye. And it didn't say specifically that she took the meds, but in a previous chapter, it had talked about her taking meds. I'm sure I
Okay.
didn't just hallucinate that, but I may have. I'm open to that possibility and all possibilities.
It's pretty intuitive. Okay, so I get it. This might have been another. I didn't remember it being that so close to the time in which you. Okay, so yeah,
Maybe,
so I thought it
maybe
was
it didn't.
interesting.
Sorry, maybe it didn't specifically say anything about taking
It
pills.
makes
It
sense though.
just said that she was saying her kind of "I love you." She called her brother and left a voicemail, and said it's not your fault. And then she decided it's a very good time to die, and then she wrote her suicide letter. So maybe we just kind of guessed. Maybe I guess that's what she had done. I'm not sure. Maybe there was something about pills in there. I don't.
Sounds about right though to me. So, well, I like the beginning, how she starts. She's describing the outside of the library and how it's all, the different aspects of the eerie visuals and the darkness, and then when she gets inside, that like, even though the windows are gone and there are no exits, like there's no way to see out, there's no way to get out, you know and on the outside it's sort of foretelling, you know I'll just leave it at that for the moment.
So I have to jump in and say I've seen this building, because what she describes here is the Akashic records. And I used to have repetitive dreams where I was, well, I call them dreams, but they were out of body experiences at night while I was sleeping, where I would be taken to this place. I was with a group of other souls. There were other souls around me, and we were all there to learn. And typically, the teachings were about um, like saving the world and stuff, things about the environment or things. It was all about, it was all love and about growth. And I had this dream. I couldn't even count how many times, but this building that is described here, I've seen this building and I've been in there with all those books. Um, the Akashic records, which I'm sure everybody here is familiar with, but if you're not familiar with that, it is a supposedly, since none of us, I guess, can prove anything, but it's supposedly this place that holds all of the information of everyone and everything that has ever occurred in any timeline, or dimension or whatever. And it is supposedly a place that can, like, I think when we do um, remote viewing, I think pretty much we're just tapping into that. Some people may just be able to open their mind enough to say that we're all connected energetically, and so you can tap into it like a computer, and other people may imagine this building that they call the Akashic records that holds all these books, that holds all this information, and you tap into that however you want to access it. It's intention, but you can access the information. So it's very, this is interesting to me, because I could have described that building just like she did in this book, because I've been there.
Wow. Well, thanks. Yeah, I wasn't sure what she was describing. So thank you.
If that is the case, I've heard of Akashic records and always wondered, and since you can confirm that that's the place, I've not experienced any kind of out of body thing like that, but that you can say that you would describe it exactly the same. That's a little bit of confirmation, maybe, of its existence.
This is also a reason why I refuse to commit suicide in this life, because I do kind of believe this concept that we don't die, we're just somewhere else. Like you can't ever just stop it all because we're eternal, right? So like why waste the time? You're just gonna wake up somewhere else with the same shit going on, probably. Maybe worse, It could be a lot worse. Focus on the good stuff.
Yeah, I've had thoughts like that too, where, I mean, if any of these concepts, whether it's, like what they're suggesting in this midnight library of there, you have to make a choice of, what type of life you want to live, or, a life experience or whatever, or if it's reincarnation, or, I mean, any number of these concepts that this isn't the only life that you live. And, if you did, when you do pass, then that you just go live another life and have to do it over again. Like you said, it could be worse, could be better, could be, or you just have to go through it again and again and again until you're at peace with all of it. And then, I don't know, it'd be something interesting. I've also had this idea of the concept that, all the lives are happening simultaneously, and every other person on earth is that other life experience that, I mean, and technically, I suppose if we're all one, then that could be true. And, but I think that this idea with the Midnight Library, I think it's just a kind of a symbolic idea of the possibilities of multi dimensions, or all of it, of, alternate lives, alternate timelines, alternate everything. And, and it's not a new concept. I mean, this has been brought up in so many different ways, and so many books and movies, and just different things, different theme stories, like the ones where time repeats, like Groundhog's Day, or people switch bodies and have different experiences, or they're faced with, they're at a near death experience, and then they go and experience something else and realize, oh, they've missed out on all this stuff that actually happened in their life because they were paying attention to the wrong thing, or whatever. So it's definitely an interesting concept. Now, one thing that I have kind of thought over the years is, if it was more like, if we had more control over it, like, we could just step out at any time and like try a different life for a little while and then step back in, like time doesn't change, and we just like kind of like a video game, play this video game for now and then that one for there, and then just take, maybe, of course, that may be what's happening, I don't know. It'd be interesting. And we just think that time is taking for a really long time in this life, and in reality, on the other side, it's just a blip of barely anything. Maybe we get to try them all. Who knows?
Yeah, if that's the case, then maybe we're all just really standing in the aisle of a library reading a book off the shelf. And when we decide to put the book down, we pop back, our minds pop out of that in existence. We put it back on the shelf and we go pick up another book and we start reading it, and now we started a new life. So I mean,
And we can do that right here in this life, as we can pick up a book or watch a movie and get completely lost in the experience of it. And, we kind of get a little break from our current life and we go into this like imaginary life, and we can do that in our imagination too. And so it's like a life within a life within a life. It's like, what do we really, it's what we're focused on at any given moment is what our experience is. And that's, it's a weird concept, isn't it? Yeah.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. And I don't know how much can we do that within our what we think is our actual life, and how much are we telling ourselves we can't do it and yet we can. And deep thoughts.
And I've been confronted myself with this idea, the concept of the space between life and death, holding space. And the concept that it's a matter of choice and I can just choose something else, but then my circumstances, I can't just jump from here to somewhere else and, oh, well, I'll just go move. I'm, not wanting the entirety of my current situation, but I feel I need something more tangible for me to take the big leap, so to say, that I can't just change from here. I have so many things that need to be set up for myself, and I just can't seem to find that safe landing place.
No, keep looking. You'll find it. Keep looking. That's part of the adventure, I think, sometimes, is just to keep looking, keep asking ourselves those deep questions, and because we'll surprise ourselves sometimes. Then when we get the answers, we got to act on them too. Not just go, oh, that's the answer, okay, and then go back into our regular routine. That seems to be I think a real difficult thing. We have so much momentum going in the direction we've been going in that it's difficult to change. Even when you do see something that you've, an opportunity to do something you've may have always wanted to do, but then when you get that opportunity, you're moving in a different direction so much that it's hard to kind of, it feels like you have to drop everything to go pursue pursue that dream. So that's I guess I kind of look at those instances as like the universe saying, well, how much do you really want that dream? We're not gonna give you that opportunity until you have to make a big decision as to how much you want it, kind of thing. Sometimes, but maybe I'm just rationalizing it. It's just interesting how that occurs.
Divine timing. Sorry, Jason, what'd you say?
Keep pursuing it. What were you saying? Divine timing?
Divine timing. I know that there's been so many times when, like, I asked the universe a question, or God, whatever, a question, and it's timing. It's like, I don't know, sometimes things just have to line up in certain ways, and it rarely happens as fast as we want. That's for sure. But I did want to say, Lori, that because you were saying that that's kind of confirmation that I would describe it the same. What is what's confirmation to me is that those dreams I had those dreams as a child and a young adolescent, long before I started doing any kind of looking into things like this, you know. But then as I got older and I started studying different things and I came across the Akashic records and I started taking energy healing classes and things like that, um, the that building was described to me, um, as they were like I took an Akashic records master training or whatever. You know, people sell you certifications for all kinds of stuff. But when I went to that class, she described that building just like it was described or as I had seen it as a child. So that I was like, oh wow, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've been there, you know. So that was what was confirming to me. It's I would definitely say I mean, I feel like I've lived so many lives just within this life. Like my life as a when I was a nurse for a long time, was a nurse. That's I mean, I was a mom during that time and I was also a wife during that time. But what I primarily was a nurse. Um, that was like a whole book in and of itself. And when I look back at that time, like I don't even my at least in this moment on on this medication that I have to take, um, my mind cannot work at the capacity that it did during that time when I was a nurse. When I think about everything that my mind was calculating and like my mind is deteriorated or something. Like I don't know. I don't know how I ever did that mentally, physically, psychologically, and being a mother and a wife and not having a helpful husband. You know, I was basically a single mom with a third kid, if you want to lay it out in you know, how it was. I don't know how I did all that. And now my daughter's doing it and I'm going, "Oh my God, how is she doing all that?" You know, like she's my hero because I'm like, "Holy shit." But so I think we definitely have, you know, lives within lives within lives within lives. And this and the thing is, like the grass always looks greener on the other side. For whatever reason, you know, we always think, well, if it was just this, or if I didn't have this, or, you know, if I was had a healthier body, or if or whatever, you know, um, then everything would just be good. Of course, it wouldn't be because there's ups and downs to everything all the time, and that's just sort of a part of nature. But but our mind tells us that, you know, we don't think about all the things that are good about this life as we imagine another life. We don't necessarily think about all the good things in this life. We just are focused on the bad things. And like Nora, she just repeatedly, she wasn't good at that. She didn't finish that. She didn't finish that. I haven't yet to hear her mention anything about herself that she recognized as good, you know, or that she felt good about, or that she felt that she accomplished. I haven't heard her say anything. And that's really such, I mean, this is a fiction book, but that's such an important lesson. And of course, we've been teaching it since we started this group is is really being being in control of what of your mind and what you tell yourself and how you talk to yourself and the things that you focus on in your life. Because it's, I mean, you can just turn on the news for 3 minutes and be depressed in this day and age. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's just I'm too much of an empath or what, but I can, things like that really affect me. And I can get focused on all the worst stuff. And I do sometimes. I mean, I'm not here to say that my mind is, I'm no monk or guru here. I'm just a regular person trying to navigate this thing, and my mind can get going way the wrong way, like really easy. And I have to thank God I have, all these tools in my toolbox to help bring me around with my breathing and meditation and uh there's lots of videos on YouTube that I watch. Sometimes I just want to watch something that makes me laugh, or sometimes I'll tune into a spiritual guru that, reminds me of what's happening and brings me back into center. Sometimes I just use music to do that. So I drum, I have a djembe. So, I like to drum, and that usually brings me back into center within minutes. That's so if you don't drum, you can think about getting a drum maybe. But that's this book just, proves the point that you really have to watch what you focus on, because it does seem, for whatever reason, and I don't understand how it works, or I would have a lot more money than I do right now, but we do seem to manifest things with our thoughts. And it may not happen instantly, but if you look back at your life, I'll guarantee you that you can look at a bad situation bad situation that happened, which is really just a learning experience, right? But and you can think, if you're honest with yourself, you can think back at what you were thinking before that happened, and there's a correlation there. I'll bet you can.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you, Catherine. I can tell you, I mean, this first few months of this year is a perfect example of that. I mean, the last, I don't know, quarter or half of last year, or fair amount of last year, I was just really having a lot of doom and gloom thoughts about how, our business and all of this is just all I can think about is all the things are going to go wrong, right? And and here we are in this year, in this last week, shit has really hit the fan, and I don't want to go into all the details of the things that happened this week, but it's really been almost, I was telling somebody the other day that I was like, gosh, this year has just been a bitch slap so far. It's been really frustrating. And I'm like, was all that negative thought that I was having the whole last half of last year the reason all this shit's happening now? It's just like, I just want to smack myself, be like, straighten up. And I was messaging my girlfriend yesterday, and I just, like, my first message was, "Are we there yet?" She responded back, "LOL," and I was like, I can't figure out whether I'm on the highway to hell or this is just an adventure, and I'm like, I gotta just start remembering it's just an adventure, and it's just, it's, don't take it as serious as I think it is, don't quit focusing on all the crap that could go wrong and start thinking about the stuff that could go right, and it's just been, yeah, I hate it. I hate, it's so frustrating sitting here thinking, okay, here I am. I go into this, like, state of depression about this and that and the other because I'm spiraling thoughts of negativity and all the doom and gloom, and yet knowing that because of those spiraling thoughts and doom and gloom, I'm causing it myself. I'm like creating this self-fulfilling prophecy, and yet I look at this past week and I'm like, how did I even play into these events? I don't see how I did, but obviously I did in some way, because I'm an influencer in my own life, I'm the influence of my own life. So, it's just, yeah, frustrating. And yet I see how if I could just focus more on the positive stuff, is that I can, I can look at all of these opportunities of, okay, well, maybe this thing that happened the other day was actually a divine intervention, like what you were saying, Catherine, that is keeping something else much worse from happening. I mean, who knows? I mean, we just don't know these things. So, Lori, I saw you trying to unmute. Jump out there.
Sometimes that's just my tremor in my finger. I don't know. It's just that monkey mind and the self-talk that comes from it, from all the past experiences and your thoughts and your beliefs, and learning how to quiet that monkey mind and not think about all those things that could go wrong. And like you said, trying to jump from here to that other timeline where I'm in the hologram or whatever, I'm creating the story, and I'm still here in the same place when I thought I jumped. So sometimes that's just the tremor in my finger.
What was the last few sentences in the scene that you read?
Today,
Today, yeah.
let me get there. Hold on just a second.
While you do that, I'll just say that, yeah, I totally agree. There is a connection with our focus, that saying about where your focus goes, your energy flows.
Mhm.
And I think that is so true. And it's, I mean, it just makes sense that one way or the other, if you just keep on a certain path, you will get to your destination. Sometimes we think we're open to an opportunity, but we're really maybe not ready for it. We've got to, we sometimes have resistance to it, and that's okay too. We shouldn't get ourselves down about that. Have a positive aspect on it, kind of like what you're saying, Samantha. Whatever it might be, we can overthink things, or we can. A person was telling me their motto was to jump out first and then learn to fly on the way down. Like I'm the total opposite of that. I'm like, overthink it until I can't think no more, and then maybe or maybe not do it. Maybe or maybe not jump, depending. But I think that if you are, it makes sense if you're committed to something, let's look at every aspect, good things and bad things, and then have a good positive spin on whatever anything that bad's going to come up. Like, well, if this happens, we're just going to do this. This happens, we're going to do this. And that way, I mean, for me at least, gives me some confidence that I'm at least prepared a little bit for whatever it is. So, but yeah, what did you?
So the last sentence was, while the Midnight Library stands, Nora, you will be preserved from death. Now you have to decide how you want to live. And before that, she was talking about all of the things that she hadn't accomplished or wasn't good at. It was a long list of things that she was reviewing. And then she'd come to the conclusion that she couldn't even die right.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking that feeling of not being complete or ineffective. That can certainly be kind of be overwhelming if you come at it from a wrong angle. But I was also thinking how helpful it would be to sit down and think about the things that I haven't done yet, that I've wanted to do, that I would still want to do at this stage in my life. and then kind of future cast on that to say, how would I feel if down the road, when I'm even, much, much older and I haven't done any of that, how would I feel? Would I feel like I, was more of a failure? Would it feel like those were regrets that I didn't do it, and why, and really kind of simmer in that a little bit to use as motivation, actually, to then come back and say, well, that's the case. If I would feel that way, then maybe I should put more effort into those things in my life, and then future cast again to start, because this is where they start to think, that mindset goes, energy flows type thing, where they say that the way you should be thinking about things is to think of the future as though, or think as the present, pull yourself into the future as if it's the present, that these things are already accomplished and that you have already done them, and feel it and experience it, and it even helps to, once you get there and you really are there, to in that exercise, sort of have a conversation with someone about how you did it, how you accomplished it. Like maybe even a young person who wouldn't understand, so that you could explain it in the most simplest terms of how you're able to do that, and get it done. And then that sort of, like, in a way, presents a path of achieving that for yourself, in that exercise anyway. So, but I just think that would be that added part about thinking about what are the things that I haven't done. Because a lot of times we have resistance to even think about the things that we haven't done, because it pulls us into maybe some feeling of ineffectiveness or failure. But if you go into that with a pathway out of it and the usefulness of it, I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, if we could just stay focused on that idea of, focused on what we want versus what we don't want, I feel like that's just a running theme in my life of trying to let go of the spiraling negativity and get back on the positive. And I don't know why it's so hard. I just don't understand why it is so difficult to stay in the positive mindset. I will say though, however, like this week, even with all the shit hitting the fan, I still have an uplifted feeling, like, it's all right, we'll figure it out, and which is odd considering when I was last year all in this doom and gloom, thinking about the horrible things that could happen. I'm like just spiraling down and down and down. And here we are in the midst of something happening. And like Jason said, just jump and you'll figure it out on your way. You'll learn to fly on the way down. And that's how I feel like right now, is just, shit happens, we'll sort this mess out, I mean, and then my fleeting thoughts are the ones that, oh, we should just quit, I'm over it, versus, I don't know, it's so funny the way our minds work. It just, I don't know, and I'm kind of the same way for the most part. I've felt the same way, Jason, of, when I want to try something new, or I want to do some new thing, I got to do all this research and I got to figure out all the ins and outs and all the da 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 da, but I have never done it that way when it comes to like being in business for myself. I just like jump in, I mean, like with the trucking and with the pet businesses before, I mean, sure, there were some aspects of it that I haven't been like, okay, I got to do all this research first, but and other aspects, I'm just in the midst of it, figuring it out as we go along. And then all my doom and gloom thoughts are about what I didn't think about ahead of time. This is what I haven't done. This is what I need to do, you know, all those things. So I don't know. It's funny, but you know, we were talking about the or you were mentioning the part where she was talking about feeling incomplete. And I feel like a lot of times we have that kind of feeling inside of ourselves and if it's not a feeling of incompleteness, it's a feeling of like there's something missing. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels like there's just something missing, you know. Excuse me, something I'm just not seeing, or something I'm not getting, or why am I feeling these unpleasant thoughts all the time? You know, what is it I'm trying to get to? You know, what is the thing I'm trying to, you know, why is it just feels like there's this missing piece of the puzzle that I just can't solve, you know. I don't know. Maybe that is the game of life, is going through your life and always feeling like there's something you're trying to some goal you're trying to reach, and or something you're trying to achieve, or somewhere you're trying to go. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's just we're inherently born with that drive to figure out something, even if we don't know exactly what it is. And we're always trying to fill that void with figuring random things out. You know, I don't know.
That's interesting that I guess I ditched school those days or whatever that missing piece was explained, and I just played hooky or something. And I guess all of us go to that coulda, shoulda, woulda school. If I had known this, if I had known that, or thought about this or thought about that, I would have done it differently or something like that. I don't know. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Another thing that I guess another way that I bring myself out of those downward spirals is I'll remind myself that, because I do believe, I mean, I don't know what God is. I really don't. But there is something that interacts with me on a daily basis and sustains me. And that's what I call God. And I've watched and experienced enough souls leaving bodies. Um, there's, we do continue. We continue as spirits. Our bodies, of course, can't make it that far, but they're amazing technology, but they're just still not eternal yet. Yet. They're working on it. But I remind myself that I believe I chose to come here, for one, but that I'm here as an extension of God to experience this world. And and it and when I look at it from that perspective, it kind of makes me feel silly to be down in such of this hole that I put myself, this hole of despair, this what was it that they called it, the swamp of doom or something in one of those childhood movies I'm remembering right now, but the swamp of despair or something that I put myself in, and I kind of laugh at myself when which is, I mean, not like in a bullyish kind of way, but it makes me feel silly that, oh my gosh, look how amazing this freaking world is. Like, just look at any animal, look at a rhinoceros. I don't know why that's coming to mind right now, but I mean, just look at a giraffe. Look at how amazing this world is. And there's so much to experience, and we can choose to experience. I mean, even those of us that have physical limitations, now we have, Google Earth or whatever it's called. We can go anywhere we want to go, even though we can't go there physically. We can be in a kayak rowing down a river virtually. I know it's not the same thing, but it kind of is the same thing, right? Like you can be watching a YouTube video about being on a roller coaster or, something like that, and you get all of the breathlessness and the adrenaline and, the your gut drops when you go down the thing, and it feels like you're there, right? It feels real, just like when you go, like you were talking about earlier, Samantha, you go into a movie like these IMAX theaters. I don't know if you've all had the experience of going into one of those. They're fabulous, and you really just feel like you're there. I think I told you guys before I used to do home health with a guy named Fritz, and he had muscular dystrophy, and he had it his whole life, of course, and he became ventilator dependent very early in life, like I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years old, something like that. And he had never had the experience of being able to swim or being underwater. That was something that he had never gotten to experience physically. And I took him to the IMAX underwater experience. I forget what it was called, but he just sat there and cried because he really felt like he was in that water. And right now, if you just think about being in the ocean or being in a pool if you've never been in the ocean, or being in the bathtub if you've never been in a pool or whatever, like you can feel, even right now, you can feel that water on your skin. Like our minds are so amazing. And and so sometimes when I'm in those despairs, I just kind of remind myself that I'm just too focused right now on the wrong things. I'm just too focused on the wrong things. And I can pull out of that and I can focus on other things and I can breathe and, you know, this too shall pass kind of thing. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. With time and a change, sometimes even just with time, but with time and especially an intentional change of thought, you can completely open a new book for your life. You really can.
This too shall pass is one of my probably most used cliches, if you want to call it that, because it's so true. Whatever is going on is going to pass and depends on our response to that experience. You can respond in a way that you're full of anger and hatred and resentment, or you can look for the joy in it, or find the joy and the pleasure. It's a matter of choice of our thoughts. I have determined that much anyway.
Well, I think that's probably it for this week. What do you guys think? Any other thoughts on it? All right. Well, for those of you who are watching, we've enjoyed this conversation. We hope you have too. We'd love to have you join us. If you want to find us, you can find us at Facebook, or go to Facebook and look for Mindset Mastery Collective. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be links below the video where you can just click over and jump into the Facebook group. I know I don't post in there a lot, but all of our links, all our replays and how to get into this meeting and all of that are in there. So it's a good resource, if not super interactive. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week. And we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.